Welcome to Magical Bedtime Tales. Tonight, we will take you to the gentle journey of the tale of the Little Mermaid. Far beneath the surface of the shimmering blue ocean, where sunlight fades into silver shadows, there lies a kingdom more beautiful than any palace built on land. Its towers are carved from coral, its windows shine with pearls, and its gardens are woven from soft seaweed that drifts like ribbons in the tide. Here, in this watery kingdom, lives the Sea King with his 6 daughters, each one more graceful than the last. The youngest of them all is the Little Mermaid. Her skin glows like moonlight upon the water, and her eyes hold the wonder of the sea itself. She is gentle, curious, and full of dreams, always listening for the songs carried by the waves from the world above. Unlike her sisters, who are content to play among the dolphins or weave garlands of sea flowers, the Little Mermaid longs for something more. She treasures the stories told by her grandmother, tales of the wide world beyond the waves, where the air is bright and stars shine down without the water's veil. She dreams of walking on 2 legs, of feeling the warm sun on her skin, and of hearing music that is not carried by currents, but sung beneath the open sky. The palace is alive with wonders. Schools of glittering fish dart through archways as though they are jewels in motion. Seahorses carry lanterns made of glowing shells, lighting the grand halls when night drifts through the ocean. Soft lullabies rise from whales passing in the distance, deep notes that make the very walls of the palace tremble like the heartbeat of the sea. Every day, the Little Mermaid swims through the palace gardens, brushing her fingers against the soft anemones that curl and bloom at her touch. She gathers treasures from shipwrecks that lie scattered on the ocean floor: a silver mirror, a golden comb, a statue of a prince carved by human hands. She hides them in her secret grotto, a cave lined with smooth shells and lit by beams of light that filter down from above. There, she dreams in silence, wondering what it would be like to belong to both worlds at once. Her sisters often laugh at her longing. They sing and play in the waves, weaving circles with dolphins and racing swift currents. Yet the Little Mermaid drifts behind, her heart caught between the world she knows and the one she cannot reach. Her grandmother soothes her gently. She tells her that when mermaids grow older, they are allowed to rise to the surface, to look upon the lands of men and women, to breathe the air and see the stars. Each year, on their 15th birthday, a mermaid may rise above the waves, and so the Little Mermaid waits with patience, her heart counting the days until she, too, may break the surface and see with her own eyes the world she has always dreamed of. But the wait feels long. Nights stretch into weeks, and weeks into years, and still she gazes upward. Sometimes she swims to the very edge of the kingdom, where the sea grows lighter, and listens to the distant hum of ships. She feels the vibrations of anchors sinking, hears the faint laughter of sailors carried down with the foam. The sounds stir her heart like no melody beneath the sea ever has. Her grotto grows with treasures. She finds broken goblets, tangled necklaces, and tiny glass beads that sparkle like stars when the light touches them. Each object gathers feels like a promise, a whisper from a world not yet hers. She arranges them carefully, each piece a story she cannot yet tell. Time in the sea is slow and gentle, but the little mermaid's longing grows swifter with every passing tide. She watches her sisters rise one by one to the surface. They return with tales of mountains that rise into the sky, of forests thick with green leaves that dance in the wind, of cities filled with lights that glow brighter than any pearl. They speak of humans with warm laughter and bright eyes, of music played on strange instruments, of voices that carry joy and sorrow all at once. Each story makes her heart ache with wonder. She listens quietly, her eyes wide, her breath held, as though she could hold onto their words and paint them into her own dreams. And so, the ocean waits with her. The waves whisper, the coral blooms, the stars above sparkle unseen. The little mermaid drifts in her grotto, her treasure cave glowing softly, and she dreams of the day when she will finally rise above the water and touch the sky. At last, the day came when the little mermaid turned 15. The palace shone with light and song, for such a birthday was not only a celebration of age, but of freedom. Her grandmother crowned her with white lilies that glowed softly against her hair, and her sisters swam in circles, their laughter echoing through the grand coral halls. But the little mermaid's heart was beating faster than the rhythm of the ocean itself. Tonight, she would rise to the surface for the very first time. Tonight, her dreams would open into reality. When the celebration ended and the sea grew quiet under the pull of the moon, she slipped away from the palace, her tail gliding in silver arcs through the dark water. Higher and higher she swam, past gardens of swaying kelp, past sleeping whales that drifted like mountains in the deep. The water grew lighter, brighter, warmer. Her heart raced as she neared the surface. And then, breaking through the waves, she lifted her face to the open sky. For the first time in her life, she breathed the air of the world above. The sky was endless, painted in soft shades of violet and silver. Stars scattered across it like diamonds, spilled from a velvet pouch. The air felt different, thin, cool, and sweet. She floated silently, her eyes wide with wonder, her heart filling with a joy too large to contain. Not far from where she floated, she saw something grand, something she had only heard of in stories. A ship, vast and glowing with lantern light, drifted across the waves. Music floated down to her, gentle and strange, unlike any song of the sea. She swam closer, careful not to be seen, and gazed upon the marvel. The ship was alive with celebration. Bright banners danced in the night air, and sailors sang and laughed upon the deck. At the center stood a young prince, tall and kind-faced, his dark hair touched by starlight. His eyes shone as he smiled at his people, and the mermaid felt her heart stir, as though she had known him all her life. She listened as the sailors spoke of him. Tonight was his birthday, they said, and the sea itself seemed to honor him with calm waters and bright skies. The prince laughed and joined their songs. his voice clear and strong, carrying across the waves. To the little mermaid, it was the most beautiful sound she had ever heard. Time slipped by, like water through her fingers. She watched the prince dance and smile, watched the lanterns glow against the sails, listened to the music rise into the night. She wished she could be part of it, wished she could dance beside him, her hand in his. But then, the sky darkened. Clouds gathered swiftly, and the wind howled across the sea. The waves began to rise, tossing the ship from side to side. Lightning tore across the heavens, and thunder rolled like the roar of mountains collapsing. The storm had come. The ship groaned as the mast snapped. Lanterns fell into the churning sea, their light swallowed by the darkness. Sailors cried out as waves swept across the deck. The little mermaid's heart tightened with fear as she saw the prince struggling to hold the ship steady, his courage unshaken even as the storm raged. And then came the great wave. It struck the ship with such force that the wood splintered and shattered. The prince was thrown into the sea, his body sinking into the chaos. Without hesitation, the little mermaid dove into the storm. The waves crashed above her, lightning split the sky, and the sea churned with fury, but she swam with all the strength of her heart. She searched through the darkness, through the wreckage of the ship, until at last she found him, still, silent, sinking deeper into the depths. She wrapped her arms around him and carried him upward, her tail cutting through the raging water. She rose and rose until at last they broke the surface. The prince lay limp in her arms, his eyes closed, his breath faint. She held him above the water, singing softly, her voice trembling like a thread of light in the storm. The night slowly gave way to dawn. The storm passed, the waves grew calmer, and the first golden rays of the sun spilled across the horizon. With the prince still in her arms, the little mermaid swam toward the shore, guided by the hope in her heart. There, upon the edge of the sea, lay a quiet beach lined with white sand and tall trees. She carried him gently onto the shore, laying his head upon the sand, brushing the water from his face. For a moment, she simply gazed at him, memorizing the shape of his features, the kindness in his expression even as he slept. She sang to him, softly, a lullaby of the sea. Though she knew he could not hear it in the same way her sisters could, she wished the song would wrap around him like a dream, protecting him, guiding him back to life. Soon, voices echoed from the cliffs above. Young maidens from a nearby temple were coming down to the shore. The little mermaid's heart trembled. She could not be seen by humans. She must return to the sea. Yet she lingered for one moment longer, pressing her hand gently against his, whispering a silent farewell. Then, with one last look, she slipped back into the water, hiding behind a rock where the waves lapped softly. The maidens found the prince lying upon the sand. They gathered around him, calling for help, and at last his eyes fluttered open. He smiled weakly at the sight of them. His life returned. He did not know that the one who had saved him watched from the sea, her heart aching with both joy and sorrow. And as the little mermaid drifted back into the waves, she knew her life would never be the same. The memory of the prince, his voice, his smile, had settled into her heart like a flame that could not be extinguished. The little mermaid returned to the sea with her heart both heavy and bright. She had saved the prince's life. She had seen him smile again, but he did not know her. He believed it was the maidens from the temple who had found him, who had carried him back to safety. From the shadows of the waves, she had watched as he thanked them, his voice filled with gratitude, while she slipped away unseen. She swam back to her grotto, where her treasures gleamed faintly in the filtered light. She rested among them, pressing her forehead against the statue of a young man she had found long ago in a shipwreck. But now, when she looked upon it, she no longer saw just a statue. She saw him, the prince, the one whose life had touched her own. From that day on, the little mermaid thought of nothing else. She rose to the surface again and again, drifting close to the shores of his kingdom. She saw him walking through the gardens of his palace, heard him speak with his people, watched him sail across the waters with his knights. She never let herself be seen, always hiding behind rocks or slipping beneath the waves whenever others approached. But her eyes followed him, her heart bound to him as surely as the tide is bound to the moon. Her sisters noticed the change in her. She no longer played with them in the coral gardens, no longer sang with them beneath the stars. She swam alone, quiet and thoughtful, gazing upward more often than at the world around her. They teased her gently, but the little mermaid only smiled faintly and drifted away. At last, unable to contain her longing, she spoke to her grandmother. "Grandmother," she asked softly, "if a mermaid loves a human, can she ever live with him?" Her grandmother's eyes grew sad. "Child, that cannot be. Humans and merfolk are of different worlds. We live 300 years beneath the sea, but we turn into foam when our time is done. Humans live far fewer years, but they have something we do not. They have a soul that lives forever, a spirit that rises to the stars when their bodies fall to the earth. To join a human world, one must have legs and a soul, and that is a gift no mermaid has." The little mermaid trembled. But can it be gained? Can a mermaid ever win a soul? Her grandmother looked at her with tenderness and sorrow. "There is but one way. If a human loves you more than all else, if he weds you and binds his heart to yours, then his soul will flow into you, and you will share it. Then you may live as he does, and your spirit will not vanish into foam. But if he loves another, your heart will break, and your life will end with the dawn, fading into the sea." The little mermaid fell silent. She thought of the prince, of his kind smile and his bright eyes. She thought of the temple maiden he believed had saved him, and how often he spoke kindly of her. Hope and fear battled within her heart. Days passed, but her longing only deepened. She could not remain beneath the sea while her heart was chained to the world above. And so, at last, she swam far from her home, into the darker waters where light did not reach. There, in the shadows of the deep, dwelled the sea witch. Few dared venture near her, For she lived in a place where the sea floor was tangled with roots of poisonous plants, and strange creatures with glowing eyes crept through the darkness. The water here was heavy and thick, pressing close like a weight. The little mermaid swam carefully, her heart pounding, but she did not turn back. She wove her way past thorny seaweed that coiled like snakes, past bones of creatures long gone, until she reached the witch's lair. The cave glowed with an eerie light. Polypi, half plant and half animal, writhed along the walls, stretching their slimy arms toward her as she passed. In the center sat the sea witch herself, vast and shadowy, her eyes gleaming like coals in the dark. "So," the witch said in a voice that echoed like distant thunder, "the Sea King's youngest daughter comes to me. I know why you are here. You long for the human prince. You wish to walk upon legs, to dance beside him, to win his love." The little mermaid's voice trembled, but she spoke with courage. "Yes, that is what I desire." The witch's laugh rippled through the cave, sharp and cold. "It can be done, but the price will be high. I will brew a potion for you. Drink it, and your tail will split into legs. You will walk upon land, and your beauty will enchant him. But every step you take will feel as though you tread upon knives. Blood will flow where your feet touch the ground, though none will see it but you. And remember this, little one. Once you take a human form, you can never return to the sea. You will never again be a child of the ocean." The mermaid's heart beat faster, but she did not waver. "If that is the price, I will pay it." The witch leaned closer, her voice growing darker. "There is more. If you cannot win his love, if he weds another, your heart will break at dawn, and you will turn into sea foam, lost forever." The little mermaid's hands trembled, but she whispered, "I understand." The witch's eyes narrowed, glittering with a cruel light. "And finally, I must have payment. You have the sweetest voice in all the sea, a voice that could charm the very stars. That voice is what you must give to me. I will cut it from your throat, and you shall never sing or speak again. Silent you will be, though your eyes and your beauty may still plead for your heart's desire." The mermaid froze. Her voice, her songs, her laughter, gone. Yet she thought of the prince, of standing beside him, of the chance to share his world. Slowly she nodded. The witch grinned, stirring a cauldron of dark waters. Strange shapes rose from the depths of the potion, writhing like shadows. She poured in drops of fire stolen from volcanic vents, crushed the petals of a flower that bloomed only under blood-red moons, and stirred with a bone carved from the ribs of a drowned sailor. The cave filled with a foul smoke that burned the mermaid's eyes, yet she did not move. At last, the witch poured the potion into a small, shell-shaped vessel and handed it to her. "Go now. Drink this upon the shore, beneath the rising sun. The change will tear through you like a blade, but when the pain ends, you will rise upon two legs. Now go, child, and remember, you are trading your world for his." The little mermaid clutched the vessel in her hands. Her heart trembled with fear, yet glowed with hope. Without a word, she turned and swam away, leaving the shadows of the witch's lair behind. She swam upward, through the still waters, back toward the surface, where the stars shone faintly, and the dawn began to brighten the sky. Her grotto, her sisters, her grandmother. She thought of them all, knowing she might never see them again. But her heart pulled her forward, toward the prince, toward the dream that had claimed her soul. She rose and rose, until at last she reached the edge of the sea, the shell still clutched tightly in her hand. The first light of the sun touched the horizon, painting the waves with gold. Her heart beat wildly. She lifted the vessel to her lips, and with one final thought of love, she drank. The potion burned like fire as it touched her lips. The taste was bitter, sharp, and filled with the weight of the sea itself. As the liquid slid down her throat, pain surged through her body, like 1,000 knives piercing her all at once. She gasped and fell upon the sand, her tail thrashing helplessly as it split apart, changing, reshaping. Her voice rose in one last cry, a song so pure and sorrowful, it trembled across the waves, and then it was gone. Silence fell upon her lips forever. When the pain faded, she lay upon the shore, trembling and weak. The dawn light bathed her in gold, and where once her shimmering tail had been, now were 2 slender legs, pale and fragile as shells newly washed ashore. She reached down, touching them in wonder, her heart quivering between fear and joy. The sound of footsteps reached her ears. She lifted her head and saw him, the prince. He had been walking along the beach at sunrise, and now he stood before her, his eyes filled with surprise. He spoke, his voice warm and gentle. "Who are you, maiden of the sea? How did you come here?" But she could not answer. Her voice was gone, carried away by the witch. She tried to speak, but only silence left her lips. Instead, she bowed her head, her eyes wide and pleading. The prince looked upon her with kindness. He saw her delicate form, her beauty brighter than the morning itself, her eyes filled with the depth he could not name. He took her hand and lifted her gently to her feet. She swayed, unused to walking, and when her bare feet touched the sand, pain lanced through her body as though she had stepped upon sharp blades. But she did not cry out. She only clung to his arm, smiling faintly through her suffering. The prince laughed softly, mistaking her silence for shyness. "Come, I will take you to the palace. You shall be cared for there." And so he led her to his home, a grand palace of white stone and glittering windows that rose above the sea. Gardens spread out before it, filled with roses, jasmine, and fountains that sang softly in the breeze. For the little mermaid, every step was agony, yet every sight was wonder. The warmth of the sun on her skin, the scent of flowers that bloomed upon the earth, the sound of birds calling to one another. These were treasures more precious than pearls. The palace servants clothed her in fine garments of silk and velvet. She moved gracefully despite her pain, each step careful and quiet, and her beauty and gentleness won the hearts of all who saw her. Though she was silent, Her eyes spoke for her, filled with warmth and longing. The prince grew fond of her. He walked with her in the gardens, showing her the flowers and the fountains. He took her riding through the fields, where her laughter shone only in her eyes, though no sound escaped her lips. He invited her to his side at feasts, where music filled the air and dancers moved with joy. The little mermaid longed to join them, and when she did, her movements were like water flowing in the light of the moon. Yet every step she danced was pain. It was as though sharp blades pierced her feet, cutting into her with each motion. But she bore it with grace, never faltering, never letting sorrow show upon her face. For when the prince smiled at her, when his eyes lingered on her with kindness, the pain seemed as nothing at all. Still, though he cherished her, the prince did not see her as his beloved. His heart held another image, a memory of the maiden from the temple, the one he believed had saved him from the sea. He spoke often of her, telling the silent mermaid how he wished to see her again, how he felt his fate was tied to her. Each word pierced the mermaid's heart deeper than any blade, yet she smiled and listened, though tears sometimes welled in her eyes when he looked away. One evening, Prince led her to the balcony of the palace. The sea stretched endlessly before them, silver beneath the moonlight. He turned to her, his gaze tender. "You are dear to me," he said softly. "You remind me of the one who saved me. I feel peace when you are near, and joy when you smile. If I could never find the maiden of the temple, I think I might choose you above all others." The little mermaid's heart leapt with hope. She reached for his hand, pressing it gently to her cheek, her eyes shining with love. But the prince's voice grew distant, filled with longing. "And yet, I know it was she who saved me. She is the one my soul belongs to." The words fell upon the mermaid like cold waves, yet she did not falter. She only stood by his side, silent, her heart a storm hidden behind her gentle eyes. Days turned into weeks, and the mermaid lived among the humans, as though she were one of them. She watched their festivals, their games, their dances. She learned their ways, though her silence set her apart. Some wondered who she truly was, where she had come from, but none could guess the truth, that she was a child of the sea, who had given all she had for love. Her sisters, far beneath the waves, wept for her absence. They swam to the surface, hoping to glimpse her, but she never appeared. Only the sea foam answered them, curling gently at their tails. Then came the day when news spread through the kingdom. The prince was to wed. A princess from a neighboring land had arrived, a maiden of great beauty and gentle spirit. She had been raised in the very temple near the shore, and the prince believed her to be the one who had saved him from the storm. His heart was set. Teen to teen, the palace filled with celebration. Bells rang, banners flew, and ships prepared to sail in honor of the coming marriage. But the little mermaid's heart was heavy as stone. She had given up her voice, her world, her very soul, and now the prince would belong to another. Yet even in her sorrow, she smiled beside him. She dressed in silk and jewels. She danced at his side, though her feet bled unseen. She bore her pain in silence, so that his joy might remain unshadowed. For her love was true, and it asked for nothing in return. On the night before the wedding, the prince spoke to her softly. "You're my dearest friend," he said. "You have been my comfort and my joy. If fate had not led me to another, perhaps my heart would have been yours. But tomorrow I shall wed, and you shall live with us in my palace, sharing in our happiness always." The little mermaid's heart cracked quietly within her chest. She nodded, her eyes shining with tears she dared not let fall. She went out onto the balcony, gazing at the dark sea, and for the first time she felt fear. The words of the witch echoed in her mind. If he married another, at dawn her life would end, her body dissolving into foam upon the waves. She looked at the stars, at the rolling ocean that had been her home, and for the first time, she felt utterly alone. The little mermaid stood upon the balcony, gazing at the restless sea. The waves rolled quietly in the moonlight, each one a reminder of the world she had left behind. Tomorrow, the prince would wed another, and at dawn, her life would end. Her heart ached with a sorrow deeper than the ocean itself, yet still, her love for him was as steady as the tide. She could not wish him unhappiness, even if it meant the loss of all she had. As she wept in silence, the waves stirred, and from the foam rose her sisters. Their long hair floated upon the water, but it was no longer shining with pearls. It was cut short, rough, and uneven, as though torn away. They reached toward her with desperate hands. "Sister," they whispered, their voices trembling, "we have given our hair to the sea witch in exchange for a chance to save you. She has given us a dagger. If you plunge it into the prince's heart before the sun rises, his blood will give you back your tail. You will be saved, and you may return to us beneath the waves." The little mermaid looked at the dagger, its blade gleaming coldly in the moonlight. Her hands shook as she took it. She gazed toward the palace, where the prince slept peacefully, dreaming of his bride to come. She stepped softly into his chamber, the dagger heavy in her grasp. She stood over him, watching the rise and fall of his breath, the gentleness of his face, the warmth of the hand that had once held hers. One strike, and her life would be her own again. She could return to the sea, live 300 years among her people, safe and whole. But as she looked at him, her heart would not allow it. She bent down, pressing her lips gently against his brow, letting her tears fall upon his skin. Then, with a trembling cry that no voice carried, she fled. Out to the balcony she ran, the dagger still in her hand. Beyond, the sea waited, its waves calling her name. She lifted the blade one last time and cast it into the waters, where it sank with a flash of light. And then, as the first rays of dawn touched the sky, she felt her body grow light. She rose upon the wind, her form dissolving into sea foam. Yet she did not vanish. Instead, she was lifted higher, her spirit shining brighter than the morning sun. Voices like soft bells surrounded her. "You are now one of us," they said, "the daughters of the air. For your kindness, your sacrifice, and your pure love, you are given another life. You shall drift upon the winds, bringing gentle breezes to the world, and after 300 years of good deeds, you will win the soul you longed for. The little mermaid looked down one last time upon the prince. He stood upon the deck of his ship, the new bride at his side, the sails lifting in the morning breeze. He never knew who had saved him, who had loved him beyond measure. Yet she smiled, for love had not left her empty. It had given her wings. And so she drifted away with the dawn, a whisper upon the wind, a promise that love's sacrifice is never in vain. As the night draws near, close your eyes and carry this story with you, a reminder that love, even when silent, has the power to change the world. Though the little mermaid's voice was taken, her heart spoke louder than words, teaching us that true love is not about possession, but about giving, even when it costs us everything. May this tale of longing, courage, and sacrifice bring you peace tonight. Good night, dear dreamer. May your sleep be gentle and your dreams filled with magic. And before you drift away into your dreams, if this story touched your heart, do one small thing: subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it with others who need a little magic before bedtime. Your support means more than words. It keeps these stories alive, reaching dreamers everywhere. Thank you for being part of this magical family. Sweet dreams, and until we meet again in another tale, good night.